All right. Okay, good. The screen is changing properly with my choices. Okay, hello. Welcome to Mom Games Badly. There are plenty of moms who are fantastic video gamers. I am not one of them, but I still enjoy playing. I hope you'll enjoy hanging out with me while I play. This is Our Life Beginnings and Always. This is one of my selections for Pride Month. I've been looking forward to playing this game for a long time. It gets really great reviews. This is one of the top 10 LGBTQIA plus Q Z. I get to make fun of it because I'm part of the community. It's in the top 10 of those games on Steam. It's in the top, I counted, it's in the top 75 games on Steam total out of all categories. And it is the #1 non-horror game on itch.io. So, which is where you can find all your independent gaming needs. All right, so we finished Family last time. And so now, which moments we go through, you have to buy the DLC to go through these particular, these moments here. All right, so let's go to the ones, wave, growing, dinner, and road trip. I think we should probably save, I feel like we should save either road trip or growing for last. So let's go with dinner. All right, hold on, I need a drink. Again, excuse me. Apologies for my vocal quality. Today was a really bad allergy day. So I was wheezing like mad not 2 hours ago, and I took like 4 hits off my inhaler. Made sure I took my allergy medicine, but I did take my allergy medicine a little late, so that can throw me off. All right, so sunlight shone through the windows as you sat in your living room, your home phone pressed to your ear. Cove was on the other end. It had been shaping up to be an ordinary day like any other, until Cove had called unexpectedly. He sounded unusually nervous greeting you. You listened silently as he kept talking, his words stilted. So, I was just, wondering, do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? The question came out strangely, almost like he'd rehearsed it a few times before, and I wish I knew these things before I read them out loud. Do you want to come over to my house for dinner tonight? La. Your eyes widened a little. You hadn't expected this to be the reason behind the call. Yeah, I'll go. I can't. You kept listening. Let's hear more. Is this a date? Is this hanging out with the parents? Am I a buffer? Cove continued. His next words sounded rehearsed too, and tinged with nervousness. My mom and dad, they really want you to be there if your parents don't have a problem with it. They asked me to ask you. You took a moment to think. Dinner at home would be quiet and uneventful today. If you really wanted to, you could go to Cove's instead. Cove spoke up again, breaking your thought train. His voice was softer than before. Also, I want you to be there too. Can you? Come over, I mean? Yeah, I can come. I'll have to ask my moms and get back to you. No, I can't make it. Why am I the only one invited? Or did you mean the whole family? I mean, I'll have to ask my moms and get back to you. Okay, tell me when you can. He sounded noticeably relieved by your response. Was you coming over for a dinner today that serious? He spoke to you for a little while longer to explain what time to come over and other details, then hung up. And that was that, for now anyway. You called Ma right afterward, and she picked up on the third ring. It wasn't a long conversation. When you asked to go to the Holden house for dinner, she was more than happy to give permission for it. No problems there. Ma wasn't one to complain about you spending time with Cove. Cove got a quick call from you afterward, so he knew for sure that you would attend the dinner. Then you said your goodbyes and went on with the afternoon. Soon enough, the sun dipped out of the sky and evening came. It was time for you to head to Cove's house. After letting Elizabeth know you were leaving, she didn't look away from the TV, just grunted. You made the small journey across the street. You knocked a couple times on the heavy door to their condo. Oh, this'll be our first time seeing inside of Cove's condo. As you waited for an answer, you found yourself contemplating being a guest while both of Cove's parents were there. It was exciting. You were apprehensive. The idea made you curious. You didn't think it would be especially interesting. You couldn't say you were thrilled. I would be apprehensive. They don't get along that great. You didn't know what to expect from this dinner party. You didn't get too much time with your thoughts, though. The door opened soon enough. Cove's mom, Kyra, stood in the frame, smiling warmly at you.
Come on.
Hey, Jamie. Welcome. Please, come on in. She opened the door wider and moved to make room. You stepped inside, allowing her to shut it behind you. Thanks so much for coming over. I know it was kind of last second. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Of course. I'm trying to match my voice to the few voice lines that get thrown in here. Of course. Just make yourself at home. It's not my home, but I've been given permission to say that. Hey, Jamie! Welcome to our humble abode. You jerked your head toward the sound of Mr. Holden's voice. He waved at you briefly from the kitchen, with his back turned and a large spoon in hand. Hope you're hungry, because I'm whipping up a lot of tasty stuff. True to his word, you heard something sizzling on the stove. You closed your eyes and inhaled. It smelled spicy and savory. With Mr. Holden busy, and Cove nowhere to be seen, it was just you and Kyra. She gave you a wry smile. He sure is. Well, I've been barred from cooking the entire time I'm staying here. Can you believe that? She nudged you with an elbow. Mr. Holden scoffed good-naturedly, then spoke from over his shoulder. You're on vacation, Kyra. You need to accept that already. She yelled back, amusement obvious on her face and in her tone. People still cook when they're on vacation. Everyone's got to eat. It's not like I'm some celebrity who can go out for every meal or hire a private chef.
Sorry.
Well, in this house, you're a VIP. Kyra smiled and shook her head quietly. Then she turned to face you once more.
Well,
sorry about that. Here I was trying to strike up a conversation with you, and Cliff just had to butt in. I don't butt in. She eyed him, chuckling in disbelief. He wasn't exactly disproving her point with that. Kyra leaned over to whisper to you. It's okay. He likes to be included. But since Clifford insisted on cooking all by himself, he'll have to wait. The two of us can chat. Her next question continued to be said in a hushed tone, just to be safe. So, how are you doing? I'm doing good. Oh, I'm good. Things are okay. I'm not really sure. You didn't reply to her question. How much does she know? I probably don't get asked this by adults a lot, so I'd be like, I'm good. Kyra didn't seem too convinced by your awkward phrasing, but she nodded anyway. I am 13. I am a typical teenager. Nervous talking to people's moms who I've just met like yesterday. She opened her mouth to say something more, but some lightly pounding footsteps caught your attention. You checked to see Cove emerge from the hall a few moments later. He might have heard all the commotion and left his room to see what was going on. He quickly took stock of the situation. Jamie, you made it. Thanks for coming. Cove's voice was unnaturally loud. You know, it would be good to have these descriptions before the dialogue. That's just me. They don't mean for it to be read out loud, but it still kind of helps you picture in your mind more clearly. Cove's voice was unnaturally loud, as if he thought you wouldn't be able to hear him from where you were, only a few feet away. Hey, weirdo. Cove frowned at your playful greeting. Weirdo? Yeah, because you're being all weird. He huffed, but he didn't deny it, which meant that he knew he was acting off too. It was when you glanced away from Cove that you spotted his parents watching the two of you interact. Cove noticed their stares too, meeting them with narrowed eyes.
So...
Are we having dinner now? Not yet, bud. I'm still cooking. All right, I'm gonna go back to my room. As he turned to leave, he bent his head to the side to face you. You coming? The question was quiet, but you heard it clearly. You smiled, pleased that he asked, and nodded in the affirmative. Cove turned to Fully and made his way down the hall. Have fun, you two. We'll call you when the food's ready to go. With that, you followed after Cove. The two of you made your way down the hall. This was the first time you were invited to see Cove's room. You had visited Cove's room before, but only rarely. Going over to Cove's room was a standard occurrence for you nowadays. I feel like Cove is a relatively private person. Like, we're close enough friends that he's let us in his room before. You know, we've known each other for like 5 years now. It would have been weird if I'd never gone to his room. But I'm going to say rarely. Cove got to the door first, opening it and stepping inside. You joined him. There was a mat on the floor in front of the door. As you stepped over the threshold into his room, you felt the crunch of sand beneath your feet. The sensation was nothing new to you, of course. Cove constantly came back to his room covered in sand, not bothering to clean himself off at the front door, and it got all over his personal space. That was just how he was, a little bit of a mess. You hadn't heard Mr. Holden ever scold him for that, not like your moms would have if you'd done it. You can sit wherever you want. Cove himself took a seat at the edge of his large bed, looking like the picture of comfort, and left you to decide. You didn't sit anywhere. You sat down on the chair. You sat next to Cove on his bed. Oh, interesting that he uses the overbed space for storage. Usually when I see a setup like this, it's like desk down here underneath and then bed on top. I would probably sit in the chair, but like pull it up next to the bed. There was a desk chair in the room for a reason, after all. You walked over and rolled it out, taking a seat on it. It was stiff against your butt and creaked each time you shifted. He definitely used his bed space more often than this. Well, too late to complain now. You just have to deal with it. With a silence growing, your gaze began to drift. You stared at the bright fish swimming in the tank. Oh yeah, he's got a fish tank. I thought it was like a poster under here for a minute. There were a bunch of them, floating to and fro in the open space. They stood out starkly against the green aquarium plants. How long have you had those fish?
I guess.
My dad bought them for me not very long after I moved here. I guess it's been years now. Wow, that's a long time. You peered carefully into the tank. The fish looked to be doing well. He must take good care of them. Most of them were small. There was one especially big one. What are their names? I don't name them. Well, not really. You lifted an eyebrow at that. He continued the explanation sheepishly.
I mean...
Mostly I just call them things based on what they look like. Squirt for a small one, tangerine for a really orange one, that sort of thing. I've had a lot of fish and I'm not that good at coming up with names. You found that funny. You found that surprising. You found that relatable. Very amusing. Who knew that was a weakness of his? It was an entertaining revelation. Oh, a couple of them have other types of names. He pointed to a small orange-ish red fish. It was minding its own business away from the others. My dad named her Dreamcatcher, and that other one's Mark. Mom came up with that one. Cove smiled to himself, his eyes reflecting the glow from the tank. You let other people name your fish?
It's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. He then turned to you, tilting his head to the side. There was a considering look on his face. Do you want to name one? Yeah! Yeah, I do. Can I? His smile grew a little at your interest. Sure. All right. There's a few who don't have names right now, the newer ones. You can pick which one you want to name. He pointed each of the recent acquisitions out to you. The first was the smallest fish in the tank. It was completely orange and zipped all over the place, running laps around the others. The second was slightly bigger and red. Its tail was dotted with black spots, which almost resembled freckles. The last fish was the biggest one. Its multicolored scales rippled under the bright light of the tank as it slowly made its way across the vast expanse. Ooh. Okay, you went with the smallest fish, the medium fish, the biggest fish. Let's go with the smallest fish. Cove only nodded at your answer, waiting on you to decide on a suitable name. You watched the fish you chose closely. As you did, a name eventually came to you. Oh, now see, I would have gone with caffeine. Oh, I can type in my own answer. So, Frank, Sunbeam, Gil, Jamie, Cove. Type in it, Bubble. Ugh, stupid. All right, it's caffeine. With that, his attention moved from you to the tank. He peered fondly at it and its inhabitants. You smiled proudly at caffeine as it swam through the tendrils of the plants, disappearing, then reappearing soon after. You know, I'm not allowed to have pets at my house, not even fish. The corners of Cove's lips turned down at that. That doesn't sound fair. It's not like fish would make a mess of your house or anything. You just gotta take care of their tank and feed them, and they'll be okay. Right? My moms can be strict over the weirdest things sometimes. I don't mind it too much. I get it. No, I'd be unhappy about it. They trust Elizabeth and me to go around the neighborhood alone, but they won't let us have a pet? Doesn't make sense. Maybe when you're even older, they'll let you? I don't know. They seem pretty against it. I wonder if they had some sort of traumatic pet death earlier in their relationship. Your current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. You launched into it without any warning, earning you a brief confused look from Cove. Oh, this is how my brain works. It's like I'll make a string of associations in my head, and what comes out of my mouth next will seem like a complete non sequitur. Okay. Current conversation brought to mind a memory from years ago. Launched into it without any warning, earning a brief. All right. One time, Elizabeth, came back from playing at the beach and just shut herself in her room. She only came down for food, and then she ran back upstairs straight after. It was kind of weird. My moms didn't think much of it at first, though. Then that night, Mom went to her room to say goodnight and started screaming. Mom and I ran over to see what happened. Lizzie had this huge lizard in her arms. Cove's eyebrows rose at that, and he leaned forward in interest.
Really?
Really? A lizard? Where'd that come from? Elizabeth said she saw it half buried in the sand and didn't know what it was. Then she pulled it out and got the answer. So she brought it home. She hid the lizard in her room for most of the day because she wanted to keep it. Mom and Ma were not happy. They worried about putting it out during nighttime, but she was going to have to let it go in the morning. Lizzie was really upset. She did bring it back to the beach eventually, but she wouldn't talk to anyone for days. When she did get over it, it was almost like it never happened. You laughed, thinking back to that time. Elizabeth had always been stubborn, but when she was younger, she forgot grudges quickly. Now it wasn't so easy. Cove had been quiet for most of the story, apart from the reveal of the lizard. He had a thoughtful look on his face. I can't even imagine what it'd be like to have a sibling. You gave serious thought to his statement before you told him. It's fun. There are ups and downs. You're lucky to be an only child. It's a nice idea in general, but my sister is Elizabeth. I don't know how to explain what it's like. There are ups and downs. It's fun to have her there when she wants to be there, but now Elizabeth barely feels like hanging out with me. Cove pursed his lips at the words, considering them quietly for a while.
Cool.
That's interesting. I think your family is cool. He didn't have much else to say, though while on the topic of your family, you considered your relationship with your moms too. They were absolutely the best. You got along with your moms. You thought your moms were okay. You found your moms to be difficult to deal with. We have seen no evidence of that in this game so far. None whatsoever. They both seem really cool and nice, but I mean, I'm sure they must have some drawbacks. I'm just gonna say I got along with the moms. You had disagreements with them, but at the end of the day, you loved them and they loved you. That was what really mattered. Yep. Well, say what you want about them, but at least your moms never tried to pay someone to be your friend. The thought prompted you to look over at Cove. He probably still didn't know that happened. You doubted that Mr. Holden mentioned it, and you never had. You wondered if you should tell him. It was a long time ago, but you were keeping a secret from Cove. You didn't tell him. It was a bad time. You didn't tell him. You weren't sure how he'd react. You didn't tell him. Secrets were meant to be kept. You didn't tell him. You just didn't want to have that talk with Cove. You decided to tell him. God, they're building this up to be such a can of worms. But like right now before an awkward family dinner seems like a really bad time to bring it up. You could bring it up some other day when the moment was right. Time passed, but you didn't really notice. The two of you were busy, making plans for the rest of the summer and chatting about your respective days. Eventually, you heard a muffled holler from a different part of the house. You and Cove raised your heads in unison.
Oh.
It's time for dinner. Cove watched the firmly shut door he had been locked behind for most of the night, but he didn't make a move to get up from the bed. You couldn't see his face, so you didn't know what expression he was wearing. I'm glad you came. Cove peeked back at you from the side. It's been awkward. Really? I couldn't tell. You were being sarcastic, of course. It was obvious that he felt weird around his parents generally, and especially lately. Cove said nothing else and remained sat where he was. Now would be as good a time as any to ask him why his parents so suddenly wanted you to come over. Is there a reason they wanted me to come over tonight? You kept quiet. It hasn't been awkward for just me. Sometimes it gets like this when no one else is around. But now you're here. Huh. You hadn't considered that. But it sort of made sense in a way. I am buffer guest. Damn it. There's another shout from outside, too muffled to actually know the words, but you could imagine what they were. Let's go. Cove finally got up, lumbering away with his shoulders sagged. You followed after him. Together, the two of you made your way back to the living room. As you expected, Cove's parents were politely waiting for you at the kitchen table, beside the windows overlooking the back of the house. Food had been prepared and set. Mr. Holden beamed as you and Cove took your places. I hope everyone's hungry. I cooked up a feast.
Yeah.
I know I am. Yeah. Cove's mumbled response wasn't nearly as upbeat as theirs. His parents didn't notice, or they pretended not to. Mr. Holden instead looked at you, grinning.
Thanks.
Let's all just take a moment to thank our special guest for being with us here tonight. Sounds like a game show host. Let's all just take a moment to thank our special guest for being with us here tonight. I'm so glad you were able to make it, Jamie, and on such short notice, too. You thanked Cove's parents back for inviting you. You didn't say anything to that. You just felt awkward about the situation. Thanks for having me over. Thanks for having me on your show, Bob.
All right.
Well, that's it. Everyone, please dig in. You can help yourselves to the food. Upon his encouragement, you looked over the meals spread out in front of you. There was a large garden salad in the center, surrounded by a variety of Mexican dishes. There were a lot of sides and optional sauces to add. You were very happy about these options. You could work with this. You weren't exactly a fan. This kind of just surprised you. You work with this. You didn't mind Mexican food. Mom loved it, so you ate it as a family often. In a way, it made your first dinner at the Holden house feel a bit more normal. Utensils and plates scraped and clinked together as the group began filling their plates. Cliff, could you pass the salsa verde? Of course.
Thanks.
Thank you. Let me just say, you really outdid yourself tonight. I'm so jealous. Jealous? What? Your cooking's nothing to sneeze at, Kyra. Cove's parents made small talk, filling the silence with what seemed to be barely any effort. You joined right in without a thought. I didn't know you could cook.
Huh?
You didn't? Who do you think has been feeding me and Cove all this time? I don't know. Maybe you guys get takeout and stuff. You could afford it, I think. Mr. Holden sputtered, acting grossly offended, but he was grinning good-naturedly. Takeout? If we ate that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we wouldn't have made it this long. Cove's mom leaned toward you, her eyes twinkling merrily. I know it might seem like Cliff is a big goof, but he's got some skills.
Hey.
Hey now, that sounds less like a compliment and more like an insult.
Don't worry about that.
If that's how you want to take it, I can't stop you, can I? Such disrespect, and in my own home. Sorry, my friend. Everything looks great, Dad, as always. Thanks, sport. Glad you think so. Cove smiled. It was genuine, even if it was strained at the corners. Brief silences interspersed the small talk. You piled some food on your plate, waiting for your turn if someone was serving themselves a dish that you had your eye on. Once the food had been divided and things settled down, Cove's parents started talking again. Now then, you sat up in your seat when you noticed they were both looking at you.
How's it going?
How has everything been over at your house? Are your moms well? You been keeping busy this summer? Or maybe you're just trying to take it easy during the break? You felt overwhelmed by the sudden rush of questions. You were more than happy to answer. You were surprised, but you didn't mind the interest. You felt uncomfortable with the attention. Surprised, I guess? You hadn't expected so many questions, and all at once. Still, what else was there to talk about apart from how the summer was going? You told them how your moms were doing. My moms are great. Moms are fine. They're the same as always. You should ask my parents about it yourself. My moms are great. Mom took us out for dessert a couple weeks ago since her project went really well. Is that so? I'll have to congratulate her when I see her. You mentioned things you'd done this summer? Wonder how things were at your house. Things I've done this summer. Not sure where to start. There's so much that's happened. You should know what I've been up to since so much has included your family. I haven't really done much. Smart choice. Take it easy when you can. When I was around your age, busy work was the furthest thing from my mind. And that was that for answering questions. Can someone say info overboard? Jamie can't keep up with everything you're throwing out. Mr. Holden winced at the gentle reprimand, as if just realizing how rapid-fire his questions had been. Oops. Sorry about that, Jamie. Guess it was a lot to take in at once, huh? Did you know, Cliff, Jamie is really into the ocean? Mr. Holden's face lit up, and he stopped eating so he could lean forward, his arms braced against the table.
Nice work.
Oh, that's right. Very cool. It's just a hobby. I'm pretty serious about it. Oh, it's not a big thing. I don't know. How serious are we about the ocean? We visit the beach a lot. Is this going to be... Are we going to make this a career path? What are we doing? It's just a hobby. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good to do things just for fun. Everyone needs a hobby. I've been thinking of picking up wood carving myself. You couldn't tell how serious he was being about that declaration. Thanks. Cove's parents were definitely the encouraging type, but you could already tell that much about them. There was a lull in conversation as everyone focused their attention on their respective plates. Yeah, can we eat? You noted, not for the first time, that Cove's parents were the ones guiding the conversation. You wondered if you should break the silence this time. You brought up your own topic of conversation. You left coming up with a conversation topic to them. I'll say something. I also like other things. Would you like to tell us more?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this is awkward. They looked genuinely eager for you to keep talking, so you did. The rest of the dinner continued just like that, with light conversation as you ate your meals. Eventually, all the dishes on the kitchen table were pretty much gone. Kyra set down her fork and rested her arms at her sides, letting loose a satisfied sigh. Her plate was completely empty.
Thanks.
That was delish. Thank you for your culinary creations, Cliff. Mr. Holden was like a flower soaking up the rays of the sun. He beamed, flattered by the praise. You ate way too much. You ate until you were satisfied. You tried not to eat too much, even though it was good. I ate until I was satisfied. It would have taken you some time to finish it all, but eventually you'd cleared your plate. Cove successfully kept his presence to a minimum for the full meal. He was slumped over even now, toying with his silverware. His parents practically only talked to you. Most attempts to entice him to join the conversation failed. It wasn't typical for him to say so little. He at least tried to participate. You didn't get much time to contemplate Cove's situation because your attention was taken by Mr. Holden pointedly clearing his voice. Not to sound like a broken record, but thanks for coming, Jamie. I'm glad we finally got the chance to have you over for a real dinner.
What?
What? Did I hear that right? This is the first time Jamie has ever had dinner here? Why in the world haven't you invited them over sooner? Cove was always the one going over to Jamie's house until now. I mean, how was I supposed to reject the generous offers of the Johnson family to host my kid? Kyra shook her head. The amused smile she was sporting told you that she wasn't actually mad. This guy, honestly. Cove. The three of you looked at Cove in unison, his small sound being more than enough to get the focus on him. After his silence. By now, he'd stopped fiddling with his fork.
I mean...
Would it be alright for Jamie to stay over? Like, for the night? He shot you a shy glance then, smiling a little. If you're cool with that. Mr. Holden's shoulders stiffened. He sat up straighter, eyes darting back and forth between you and Cove. His mouth opened, but not a peep came out. You'd never seen Cove's dad say no to him before. But this was different. This was different than the usual request. It wasn't so simple, and Mr. Holden was lost. Then Cove's mom reached out and took hold of his shirt collar. She pulled him closer. She glanced at you before leaning in and bringing a hand up in front of their faces. The two adults whispered seriously to each other. Cove's eyes opened wider. He leaned forward as if that would help him overhear his parents' conversation. Mr. Holden kept gesturing with his hands, while Kyra made sure he didn't get too far away with all his movements. I don't know what they're I mean, I know what they're imagining, or at least what he's imagining, at least some of what he's imagining or worrying about, I think. But I'm not sure that's what Cove is angling for here. I don't think he's looking for anything untoward or overly flirtatious right now. Every now and then, both of them would watch you and Cove out of the corner of their eyes. It didn't seem like they were fighting to you. They looked more like some kind of tiny sports team having a private huddle. After a bit, they broke the group up. They moved back to sit properly in their chairs. You snuck a look at Cove. He stared at them expectantly. You were eager to hear their verdict, too. We, Kyra and I, think that should be fine. But, he lifted a finger dramatically, but, his brows raising as he met Cove's gaze and then your own. We'll have to talk with Jamie's parents to make sure they'd be comfortable with it. If they are, we can arrange for a sleepover to happen on a different night when everyone is more prepared. If Jamie's folks don't like the idea, there's nothing we can do. He finished the mini speech with a wide shrug using his full arms. He also checked out Kyra from the corner of his eye and gave her a crooked smile. She nodded approvingly and grinned back. You thought you saw her give him a thumbs up, but her hand was partially blocked by the table. They looked so pleased with themselves over the answer, but they just passed the actual decision on whether it was all right or not to someone else, namely your parents. If this was a sports game, they would have punted the ball away. Cove hung his head, deflated. He had been hoping you could stay over today, not some hypothetical time in the future. You gave him some words of encouragement. You patted him on the back. Psst, I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. Hey, you could always sneak into my room again. You pouted about it too. I'll sneak the phone into my room tonight. If you get your home phone too, then we can still talk, even though I'll be back home. Cove's eyes sparkled at the suggestion. It may or may not end up being possible, but it was worth trying. With that, dinner finally came to an end. Mr. Holden stood up from the table and began collecting everyone's empty plates. Cove was asked to help out, which he did with little fuss. Kyra tried to lend a hand as well. However, Mr. Holden didn't let her. It seemed she was barred from cleaning as well as cooking. You weren't allowed to chip in either, since you were there as the declared guest of honor. Although the meal was over, the night wasn't. It looked like you weren't going home just yet after all. You were asked to wait on the couch. While Cove and his dad were cleaning up the mess, Kyra disappeared down the hall after shooting you a wink. It was a bit strange sitting by yourself while everybody else had something to do. Luckily, you weren't alone for too long. After a couple minutes, Cove's mom returned with a deck of cards in hand. She strolled into the room confidently while shuffling. So, who's up for a few rounds? Cove and his dad looked over their shoulders at the question. They were mutually intrigued by the cards in her hands. She beamed at their expressions and stepped further into the living room. Ignoring the couches, she sat cross-legged on the floor by the coffee table. She turned to you and gestured at the space beside her, smiling invitingly. You accepted and followed her lead. The living room carpet was soft, though the hardwood floor underneath could still definitely be felt. Kyra did an overhand shuffle while she waited for the others to finish their tasks. A smile had yet to leave her lips.
Great.
This is going to be good. You were excited. You were nervous. You were bored. You were kind of annoyed. You enjoyed her enthusiasm. Am I going to be good at this? Am I going to be bad at this? Which card game is she thinking of? You got through dinner all right, but you didn't know how the rest of the evening would go. It didn't take much longer for Cove and his dad to wrap things enough to call it good. Cove's dad appeared first, followed closely behind by Cove. Mr. Holden rubbed his hands together in anticipation. All right, I'm ready. As he took a seat across from you on the floor, you noticed that Cove hadn't joined him. He went straight down the hall instead, without even a word. You stared on confused as he disappeared through his bedroom door. Cove's parents didn't look concerned at the stunt. Kyra nonchalantly split the deck of cards into two and riffled the halves together while offering an explanation of sorts. Cove doesn't keep his wallet with him when at home. He puts it away. What? Cove quickly returned to the living room, a black wallet in his hand. He took a place at the foot of the table with the rest of you. You blinked as Cove unzipped his wallet. You guys use real money, even when you're only playing card games with each other? While you sat there, your hands idle in your lap, the three shot looks at one another and sized each other up.
Yeah.
That's right. $5 per round per person. Winner takes all. Go big or go home. I'm going home. Oh, are you planning on kicking Jamie to the curb? Or do you intend on donating to the guest of honor's pot, Mr. High Roller? Mr. Holden narrowed his eyes and leaned back against the side of the couch, completely at ease.
No worries.
If Jamie wants to play, I'll fund their way in. Don't you worry about that. He rested an arm across the top of a knee that he propped up. Cove's dad was acting slick in a way you'd never seen him before. You appreciated his offer. You joked that he shouldn't be so confident. You felt awkward about the situation. His surety in this was pretty appealing. You ignored it. Yeah, that's awkward to suddenly spring on your guest that you play cards for money, even if you're offering to kind of pay their way in. Looks like then if you win, it's like it's not really yours. You didn't pay for the initial stake. I would feel awkward about it. If you'd known about this beforehand, you could have grabbed some money you had stashed away, or done something to prepare for this. Well, you've got your ticket. Interested in throwing in? You glanced around. This seemed like serious business. In response to your consternation, Kyra softened her competitive smile. Don't worry too much. We'll probably just do some rounds of Go Fish tonight. No biggie.
Do you mind?
What do you think? You joined in. You watched. Playing Go Fish for money? Sometimes this game is real weird. Let's join in, I guess. Definitely. I want to play. Mr. Holden gave you a big thumbs up while Cove nodded firmly back. You were really good at Go Fish. Go Fish is almost entirely luck-based. Come on. You're decent at Go Fish. You left it all to luck. You were always bad at Go Fish. Left it all to luck. Card games were mostly about chance, after all. All right. I have to go. I'm going to grab some more water and take a decongestant. So I stop talking like this. I will be right back. Okay, so we're about to play cards for money. Fantastic. Oh, I should bring my water. I can grab it more easily. We'll play for however long everyone wants to keep going, or until people start running out of cash, but are still refusing to quit while they're behind. Speaking for yourself, I see. With a laugh, Kyra nudged you using an elbow, then motioned toward the other two with her chin. Don't be fooled by their soft faces. These boys are sharks. In reaction to her words, Mr. Holden smirked, and Cove's eyebrows became more angled. Kyra's phrasing made you think back to when you were young, specifically of Mr. Holden's favorite shark pants that he used to wear all the time. Perhaps they had been a fit for him in ways you didn't know of. You could feel tension in the air. Cove and his parents glued their eyes to one another, then all placed $5 bills in an empty space in front of them. Well, it's all or nothing every round? What is it? How does this work? Or is it just like a stake and you keep track on paper? Well, we'll find out. Cove dropped an extra one for you, giving you a tiny smile after he did. Once this was done, Kyra began dealing out cards to everybody. It was time to begin. The first round came and went quickly, with the group getting into the groove of things. You lost, which meant you didn't have any money to add to the pot for another game.
Very cute.
Hey, I'll vouch for you this next round, Jamie. Oh, generous, even though you lost your own bit already. Kyra stuck her finger in Mr. Holden's chest. So did you, Hotshot. Cove had been the one to claim the prize this time. He was quietly pleased with himself, while his parents jokingly ragged on each other. Kyra wasn't lying. The boys were sharks.
It's okay.
I'll pay for it. Pass out another round. Fine. Answered in unison and got their heads back in the game. As the night went on, so did the games. Mr. Holden would jokingly shake his fist whenever someone other than him got a pair. Kyra acted as a news anchor, reporting on every move everyone made by speaking into her curled fist. Cove was still a few words, and now it was because he was focused on the game instead of being overcome with awkwardness. Most of the time, you even spotted a smile on his lips. You won quite a few games, to your delight. You had a hefty money pile on your side of the table. You must regret paying Jamie's way in now, huh? No way. Jamie might be beating me, but they're also beating you two. Cove turned toward you and smiled, looking pleased at your ability to match his mom and dad. You smirked and raised your hand for a high five, which he was willing to give you. Sweet. It became clear that where the money went in the moment didn't really matter. They ended up giving it back to one another in other ways, and not just through more rounds of cards. You sat back, looking over the scene. A tiny smile grew on your face. Cove's family was pretty cool, you thought. You were glad you got this chance to come over to spend time with the three of them. All right, then. And then summer ended. No. Growing, road trip, wave. All right, so wave is either going to be... I feel like it's going to be either something really beautiful or it's like some kind of disaster that we will have to weather together. Yeah, let's go for it. Wave. The family shopping trip had lasted most of the morning, and you still had to unload everything from the trunk before you could go enjoy the afternoon. You cradled another bag in your arms as you headed toward your house. It was one of the heavier bags from the grocery store, loaded with fresh apples, ripe tomatoes, a bunch of carrots, and even half a watermelon. Ma came out the front door and paused just ahead of you.
It's no trouble.
Need any help with that, Jamie? I can bring it the rest of the way if you want me to. Yes, please. It would be helpful. Yes, please. It was just too heavy. No, I've got it. You were doing fine. No, I've got it. You could just manage to hold it. You eagerly agreed with a nod of your head. You needed someone else to... Excuse me, I got hiccups. You eagerly agreed with a nod of your head. You needed someone else to take it. You didn't say anything. You could finish the job yourself, no problem. Say we can carry it. Even if it was large, it wasn't really any problem for you. Ma gave you an encouraging grin. and rustled her fingers through your purple hair. You set the next bag on the counter. Your older sister began to root around inside for the contents with a sigh. How much is left? Still a few more bags. With a huff and a puff, Elizabeth continued putting away the groceries, and you retreated out of the kitchen before you could become the target of her bad mood.
Be careful.
Careful, Jamie. You hadn't been looking where you were going and bumped right into Mom, almost stepping on her toes to boot. Sorry. I can give you a pass this time, but be sure to watch where you're going. If you run into the wrong person, you might get your license revoked. She grinned at the bad joke as you continued through the door. Outside, Ma had started organizing what remained and putting back any loose objects that had fallen out during the trip. When you stepped up to the trunk beside her, she took in a big breath of air, her dress gently swaying around in the breeze.
That's a shame.
It's a shame we had to spend the morning cooped up in that shopping center. It's a beautiful day, don't you think? You tilted your head to the sky, gazing at the clear blue expanse. Yeah, it is. Days like today are my favorite. It's too hot. I wish it was raining. I like when it's stormy the best. I kind of do. You thought of the past winter, remembering the nip of cool air that would travel off the sea. No, I didn't mean that kind. I meant summer thunderstorms. It didn't snow in Sunset Bird, but being wrapped up in bed listening to the thunder and lightning gave you a certain sense of peace. I'm impressed you can enjoy something like that. It's a good way to think. You smiled at her, turning back to the trunk to help out with the last of the bags. Oh, hi, Cove. You noticed Mom wave over at Cove, who had just exited his front door, his surfboard propped up under one arm. Let me see. Surfboard and wetsuit. Where might you be off to on this beautiful day? Cove flinched at being called so suddenly. He hadn't realized there were people out here already, but he quickly recovered. Good one, Mrs. Johnson. He crossed the pavement to properly say hello to you and your moms. Hello, honey. It's a beautiful day for surfing. I haven't been out on the waves in a long time. I'm jealous. Cove smiled, pleased to have people around who shared in his hobby. Yeah, I'm hoping to get a few good waves before it gets dark. Do you want to come hang out there later, Jamie? Sure, I'll meet you there when we're done. Oh, yeah, I could do that. All right. I can't this time. If he's set up as like our best friend. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Cool. Can I help out with anything? No, this is our job. You go enjoy the beach. Jamie can catch up as soon as they're finished here. All right, I'll see you. Yeah. You watched as Cove headed off toward the beach, unable to hide your grin, knowing that you'd be joining him soon. Once everything had finally been taken in and put away, you got yourself ready to meet Cove at the beach. You had a surfboard in your room that you wanted to take with you. Your family had a surfboard around here somewhere. You weren't sure what you were going to do. He was surfing and you didn't know how. Yeah. You said the same thing to your parents, and while Ma laughed a little, Mom gave you a smile.
Well,
You'll just have to go there and see what happens. Cove must have been so excited to invite you there that he forgot you don't surf. Or he's hoping you'll go watch him so he can show off. Oh, yes, I used to do that. I know, hon. I experienced Jamie's situation firsthand. I was stuck out on the shore, too. You noticed what I was doing. Yes, you noticed what I was doing? Yes, after the very first time. It's not a subtle move. How embarrassing. I was still impressed. Aw, thank you. Dang, nice work, Ma. Hey, what are you still doing here? Go on, have your fun. You're only young once. Don't do anything I wouldn't have. Okay. I get the feeling that Ma here got up to some shenanigans in her day. Probably still does, just more quietly and discreetly. At your parents' prodding, you hurried to leave the house and head down to the beach. When you arrived at the shore, you were greeted by the crash of waves and the soft calls of seagulls. You took in a lungful of the ocean air and felt your peachy skin warm in the sun. You noticed a small setup nearby with a towel, some sunscreen, and a bottle of water. It must be Cove's. You spotted Cove himself nearby. He hadn't gone out to sea yet. He was just sitting in the sand at the water's edge, his board propped up beside him. You ran up beside him. Hey, are you waiting for someone? Jamie. He looked up at you with a smile and quickly hopped to his feet. I was wondering if you were still coming. I wouldn't have missed it. Sorry you had to wait. And stay inside all day? I don't think so. You were able to make him laugh with that. Then he cast his eyes out toward the waves. What am I supposed to do while you surf? I'll stay here and watch you surf. I'm going to find something to do while you surf. Yeah, I'll stay here and watch you surf. Oh. You were ready to spread out your towel and take it easy.
Don't worry about it.
I don't have to go out. I'll stay with you on shore. Or if you want, you could use one of my other boards. I could teach you. I owe you that much, right? I was the one who always promised to show you about surfing. True. He's offered that option to you for pretty much as long as you've known him. You were touched he remembered. You would rather just watch Cove surf. You accepted the offer to hang out on the beach. You wanted to try surfing. I'll try it. I'll do it. Let's surf. Cool. I bet one of us will almost drown. It will probably be me. It was settled. Cove leapt up the shore and then returned with an extra board under his arm in no time at all. You paddled out into the sea to where the good waves were. The water was cool against your skin.
Mine's nice.
Nice. Not too calm, but nothing crazy. It looks perfect today. He smiled at you and you couldn't help but smile back. You felt totally content. Until Cove kicked the water a little too hard and it inadvertently splashed you. Hey! Sorry. The apology did not come across as especially repentant, as he was practically laughing when he said it. You splashed him back. You let it go. A little splash. You laughed, but waited for an opening for revenge. The second he looked away, you kicked back, spraying him.
Seriously?
Is that any way to treat someone trying to help? I came out here to teach you. And I was just following your example. Cove tried to keep a straight face, but ended up looking away. The water you flicked at him landed in shiny droplets in his hair. And here's another lesson. He soaked you deliberately this time. He used his full leg and an impressive curtain of water hit you in the face. You lost your balance and scrambled to keep hold of the board. You just managed to stay on, but it was close. Cove winced. Are you okay? That wasn't what I was trying to do. I'm fine, but we should do the real teaching. Yeah. He chuckled awkwardly and shook some water out of his ear. With that, Cove started telling you all the tips and tricks of how to stay on a surfboard. He demonstrated both good and bad posture and explained where you needed to put your weight. Like this? You wiggled your body so that you were more in the center of your board. Cove nodded. Yep, just like that. The little lesson continued and things clicked with you quickly. It had to go slowly, but you got it. You kind of struggled. It was disastrous. If it were me, I'd be struggling probably. Trying to think if there's anything that I started out doing awkwardly but got the hang of it fairly quickly. Like a physical sport? I don't know. I've probably struggled a little bit. Cove tried as best he could to help you improve. It was difficult for the both of you to work it out, though progress was made. Since you weren't truly ready for it, Cove never pushed you to start taking on full waves, which meant he didn't either. Instead, he stuck by your side in calmer seas to assist with your practice. There was no disappointment on his face over how things played out. Even if you hadn't reached the point of doing any real serious surfing yet, it was still a lot of fun. Many laughs were shared between the two of you. What an afternoon. The setting sun was visible on the horizon. Every time you would look away, it had sunk a little lower. The beach was darkening, but still pleasantly warm. You knew you should get out of the water before it was completely dark in the sea. You rode one last wave to get back to the beach. There, you picked up your surfboard and gave it a quick once-over. Cove followed behind you to the shore. He put his board with his other things and grabbed his towel to start drying off. As he ruffled his hair with the towel, you watched the sunset together. The colors were beautiful in the distance, and the shadows around you deepened. There was no need for words between you two as you both enjoyed the sight for a moment. Cove broke the silence. The waves were good today, I think.
Yeah, totally. I guess.
Perfect for surfing. Did you really think so? Did you really think so? He nodded mildly. You chatted a little more until the conversation truly died out, and all you heard was the rhythmic sound of the waves. Then Cove sighed. The day can't be over. Not yet. He scowled into the distance, as if the sun exiting the sky was a personal offense. Don't you think it should be longer? Yeah, felt long enough to me. Only a shrug could express your feelings on that matter. Yes, wish it was longer. Cove stood up straight in defiance of the approaching darkness. I'm not going to go home yet. I want to go somewhere. I don't know. Cove was still dripping in salt water, so you weren't sure what the alternative was. Wetsuits were fine for the beach and not much else. It wasn't a good idea for him to lug his surfboard around town either. You'll be real cute in that wetsuit wherever you go. Well, I need to call it a night. Yeah, I want to do something too. We'll sure be welcome anywhere soaking wet like this. I want to do something too. Maybe we can just, walk along the beach, look for shells. I don't know. Cove nodded with a smile. Then he looked down the shore with wide, shining eyes. There's at least one place that's always okay to hang out in, no matter what time it is. The park. You nodded. The park was virtually always empty. Even Elizabeth only went over there nowadays if she was looking for you. How times have changed. She used to be so protective of the place. In fact, the only person there was a chance of running into might be that Jeremy kid again. You brought the idea up to Cove and he cringed. But I'm still going. The sun is still there, a little. I'm staying out as long as it is. You tagged along, you went home. I'm coming. Okay, let's go. Cove took a minute to put his stuff in order. He made sure to get it all, though it didn't take much care to shake the sand off. You dealt with your own things. You stuffed everything together quickly. You took your time to pack your bag. The two of you finished at about the same time. As a final touch, Cove plucked his glasses off the beach and put them back on his face. He looked more like himself now. He led the way down the beach to the park. It wasn't far, so it didn't take you long at all. The sun still hadn't completely disappeared yet when you made your arrival. Cove stuck his surfboard upright in the sand and tossed his towel over top. By now, the two of you were mostly dry. The summer breeze on your skin kept you pleasantly warm. Cove idly went over to the monkey bars. He grabbed them, feet flat on the ground, and pretended to go across. He had definitely grown in the past few years. You were still short enough to use the monkey bars yourself. Sometimes being tiny had its perks. When he got to a bar in the middle, Cove pulled himself up and through, then sat on top of the bars. His legs dangled off the side of the bar he perched on. You joined him on the monkey bars. You stood nearby. You took a seat on the swing. Sit on the monkey bars. You looked above yourself to inspect the monkey bars. You might have been short, but that just gave you more experience in climbing things. That is true. That is true. I was a pretty good tree climber and a great counter climber. You leaped and grabbed at one of the bars, using the momentum to swing yourself up. It took a little more scrambling, but you made it to the top. Cove seemed impressed. You settled on the monkey bar like it was a throne. You didn't get to be above everything often. Guess what? He smiled broadly and raised an eyebrow. He's not here. Right? It was true. There wasn't a single sign of Jeremy. Looks like it was just going to be the two of you tonight. Cove hung his head and groaned dramatically. Your eyes widened when he whipped his head back
No
up.
way.
Can't believe how dumb my parents are for forcing me to... I can't believe how dumb my parents are for forcing me to come to this stupid place. You were taken aback and blinked for a second before you realized he was quoting Jeremy. Ha ha. Don't scare me like that. One Jeremy is enough. That's not really nice. Funny, but not nice. You don't have to tease him. Parents don't know anything. Is Jeremy gonna show up and catch us doing this? If so, should I prepare for that? I mean, realistically, I probably would have joined in. Parents don't know anything. Cove chuckled back at you, amused. You looked around. The old park, the streets you knew like the back of your hand, and the beach. These were your stomping grounds. You wondered how Cove actually felt. How much was his joke just a joke, and how much was sincere dislike of this place? Moving had never been his choice. Do you actually like this neighborhood? I know you don't think it's dumb. You let the silence stretch between you two. Do you actually like this neighborhood? Do you really have to ask that, Jamie? Cove kicked his legs carelessly as they dangled. He smiled softly. I like it here. I really do. It's a nice place. He didn't hesitate. There was no uncertainty. That was his genuine opinion. Yeah, I like it too. Well, at least one person likes it here. Oh, well, at least one person likes it here. You nodded wordlessly. Well, of course. I'm here, after all. You're the best thing in the neighborhood, Cove. I mean, we've got a jokey relationship with him, so... Well, of course. I'm here, after all. He shook his head with a rueful smile. It didn't take long for the day to finally draw to a close. The sun was gone, and it was dark. You chatted a while longer, but it was definitely winding down. We better get home. I wish days were longer. You chose not to say anything. I wish days were longer. I wish this day was longer. His feet kicked out, made him look like a pouty child. Oh well. Cove sighed. It was time to go home. He hopped down from the monkey bars with a thump when his feet hit the ground. You clambered down the monkey bars yourself. You lowered yourself more slowly than Cove, and barely made a sound when your feet reached the ground. Cove grabbed his surfboard and threw his towel around his neck. With his water bottle in hand, he was ready. You both began your trek up the road. It was a quiet night, and you didn't run into anyone else. In what felt like no time at all, you had reached your street. As you walked, Cove smiled to himself. It was a soft expression, and you couldn't help but wonder what put it there. Hey, don't keep all that thinking to yourself. I just remember when we were younger, it used to be such a big deal to come home after dark. You could indeed recall. If you got sandy, your parents would have something to say. If you got wet, your parents would have more to say. And if you came home after dark, well, your mom's and his dad better have said it was okay beforehand. You used to need permission for everything. That small comment he made exposed just how much freedom you really had this summer. Cove looked up into the sky, a smile still on his face, as the two of you walked side by side, reminiscing. When you came to your houses, you turned to each other. Thanks for today, Jamie.
Bye.
It was nice seeing you. This was definitely an interesting experience.
Yup.
Thanks for the awesome day. No, it was an awesome day. Thanks for the awesome day. Cove waved and you both turned around to your respective houses. This was a pleasant end to the outing, you thought. Let's try road trip. Road trip, road trip. Even though you were awake, the sun had barely peeked its head above the horizon, and the sky above was still dark, though lightening by the minute. Usually you wouldn't be up so early, especially during summer vacation. But today was different. Today, instead of the lazy days you were used to, everything around you was a flurry of activity, as both your family and Cove's prepared for what lay ahead. Because parked in the street, just outside your house, was a massive RV camper, so big you couldn't even see Cove's house behind it. His parents had rented the RV for a few days to take him on a short road trip to see the Redwood National Park. You glanced at Cove, who was standing nearby taking in the scene in front of him. The prospect of the trip had to be a mixed bag for him, but it was only 3 days, so it seemed he was dealing with it as best he could. Especially now that you and your family were joining them. You weren't sure how exactly it had happened. You knew your parents and Cove spoke to each other often, and somewhere along the way plans were made after Cliff offered to share the space. The parents all thought it was a fantastic idea. You had already gotten a good look inside while helping to load everything in, and you had to admit that while it was a really big car, fitting that many people inside was going to be snug.
Let's go.
Move it or lose it, kiddo. Mom bustled past with the cooler in one hand and a large bottle of water under the other. She was upbeat for this early in the morning. Ma, however, seemed to be on the other side of the wavelength. She followed behind her wife, dragging her feet on every step. I'm gonna need a whole jug of coffee once we hit the road. You could relate to Ma. It was way too early. Personally, you were as raring to go as your mom. You felt like you were a middle ground between the two. It's way too early. You yawned and rubbed at your eyes, still sleepy from the early morning wake-up call. The air outside was still damp from dew, and that helped make you a bit more alert. And then, at the end of the chain, came your sister. She had a bone to pick before the trip officially started. Her rattling off critiques added some level of normalcy to everything new going on. I don't get why I can't sleep in the bed tonight. Jamie is the youngest, and I'll never fall asleep in that loft. We're trying to make things fair on everyone. If you want to play the older card, you should be offering to take the loft both nights. It's important for big siblings to make sacrifices for their younger ones. Elizabeth huffed, not happy with that answer in the slightest, and folded her arms, leaning back against the side of the RV. The trip plans had been nailed down prior, sleeping arrangements included. Elizabeth still held on to her objections with them. There was a main area of the RV with a couch, loft, and some floor space. At the end of the car was a room with a large bed. Your moms were sharing the bed, Kyra was on the couch, and father and son intended to sleep on the floor. The adults determined you and Elizabeth would switch between the small loft above the driver's seat and sharing the bed with moms. were fine with the arrangements. You were excited to sleep in the loft. You felt sharing a bed with your parents was gonna be awkward. You were looking forward to a sleepover with your moms. You weren't too happy either, but didn't want to make a fuss. You thought it was unfair that Cove had to sleep on the floor. Toss up between excited to sleep in a loft and unfair that Cove had to sleep on the floor. After all, it was supposed to be a trip for him and his family before yours ended up coming along too. Now he had been kicked out of every bed. Now he had been kicked out of every bed-like space and put on the floor. There had to be another way to organize things so it was better for him. You offered to sleep somewhere else. You suggested sharing the loft with Cove. Again, with the one horny option for all of these. You said nothing about it, though. Let's at least. All right, actually, let's make a save. Okay, let's at least offer to give the loft to Cove on our night or something. Because how big is the loft above the driver's seat? I've never driven in an RV before. The closest I've come was moderate sized camper top on top of a pickup truck. So it was not that big. I will offer to sleep somewhere else. I could sleep on the floor or wherever for one night, so Cove could have a turn in the loft instead. You announced your idea to the group, and everyone paused from what they were doing to consider it. Cove was taken aback by the consideration, like he hadn't thought about how he had clearly gotten the short end of the stick.
No.
There's no way you'd be sleeping in the back while I'm with Moms. There's barely enough room for 3. We can't add a 4th. Then I can be on the floor for a night, and he'll be on the floor for one night when Elizabeth is in the loft.
Sorry.
No can do, Jamie, sorry. The 3 of us all together down there is bonding time. Cliff put one arm around Kyra's shoulders and the other around Cove, dragging them both into him. They smiled at his little show. I am afraid we can't extend you an invite. You simply have to take the loft. Cove and his mom both shook their heads at Mr. Holden, and you had to agree that it was a pretty weak excuse as far as excuses go. They were just being hospitable to your family.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Thanks, Jamie. It's all right. I could take the floor for 2 nights. And that settled the matter for good. All right, you lot. Does everyone have everything they need? We're heading out in 5 minutes. Now's the time to double check. You don't want to forget something important. At the word, Elizabeth yelped and dashed back into the house, her bedhead hair bouncing behind her as she went. Ma came over and gave you a smile, setting her hands on her hips. How about you, Jamie? Do you have all your clothes packed? Toiletries? Deodorant? Floss? Anything else you can think of? You were confident you had it all. You weren't sure about that. Oh, you had to run back inside for something. You just gave her a flat look. I would at least run back inside just to check, just to look over my room one more time, look through the bathroom one more time, make sure I hadn't left anything. Oh, I gotta go. Sprinting up the stairs to the bathroom, you grabbed your toothbrush from beside the sink before heading back down. You were glad you were reminded to grab it after having left it out to use this morning. It would have been embarrassing if you couldn't brush your teeth for the next few days. Your ma was still there, waiting with a knowing expression as you walked out again. Got everything now, Jamie? Yeah. With a few minutes left to spare before leaving, you mentally went over what you had packed for the trip. Clothes, a pillow and blanket, usual day-to-day gear for most people. You also had more personal things, such as a portable gaming console, a bag of makeup, a ball, pencils and paper, your favorite stuffed animal, your camera, an MP3 player with headphones, a couple of things to read. I would take pencils and paper. You had to be prepared in case you saw something to sketch at the park, or if you had to write anything down, or if you just needed to pass the time doodling. A couple of things to read. You had packed one of your old favorites and a new one you'd never tried before. You knew you'd have plenty of time for them both on such a long drive. Camera? MP3 player? There's too many people to be able to listen to music. Personally, I sleep with earbuds in. I do have an MP3 player, and I used to listen to that every night, and I've gotten, when it's an iPod, and when Apple stopped supporting the app for loading stuff onto your iPod, I switched over to my phone. So I've gotten used to having, listening to podcasts or audiobooks or, like a YouTube video on my phone when I go to sleep at night. I am probably overly dependent on it, frankly. All right. Your camera, MP3 player, go with camera. It was just a little pocket camera you had gotten from your mom's, but you couldn't miss the opportunity to take some new snaps. And then, that's everything. Hey, let me take that for you, Jamie. I'll stow it in the RV. There's a few spots left it'll fit. You let Kyra take your bag and gave her a grateful smile. With nothing left to do, you watched the others getting ready for the trip. Kyra and Cliff seemed to have the most energy of anyone. They were finishing packing the suitcases away while your moms had gone to lock up the house. They high-fived whenever another one got crammed into the storage compartments of the vehicle. Even though your own parents were more low-key than Cove's, you could tell they were both excited for the trip. It had been a while since your family had been away anywhere together. Elizabeth skipped toward the RV, a bag slung over her shoulder, and you were surprised to see she seemed more optimistic about the whole ordeal now. Usually she wasn't one to exit the confines of her room unless it was for TV or food, or to leave her family behind to be with friends. You would have thought 3 whole days packed into an RV with 6 others would be too much for her, but it was a nice surprise. You supposed any vacation was better than no vacation in her mind. Cove had been pretty quiet so far, and more than anything seemed to be overwhelmed by the situation. Yeah, I would have expected that. You were excited for the trip too. You weren't very excited for the trip either. You were eager to get to the destination. You were curious about the RV. You didn't feel much either way about the plans. Curious about the RV. You'd never stayed overnight in one before and wanted to know what it'd be like. Soon the miscellaneous remaining tasks had all been wrapped up. Everyone piled into the RV. It was officially time for the trip to start. And it did. Cliff took the first shift driving. He cautiously navigated the massive car out of the narrow neighborhood streets. It was touch and go for the first part of the journey. Your moms and Kyra were all huddled at the front, trying to get a view of how much space they had on each side. There was a sense of relief when the first long leg of the trip was hit, and the RV would only need to go down one stretch of highway for miles. That's like how I feel driving across Pennsylvania from, east-west, is it's just, you get on the road and the GPS will say, stay on this road for 280 miles. Just, okay. The mom group cleared out of the driver's area, leaving Cove's dad to it, taking more comfortable seats around the main cabin. Oh, I see. Here's the loft. All right. Maybe you could squeeze 2 people in there. I don't know. Be crowded, though. You felt like you could finally relax now, too. Time slipped by as morning faded away. Before you realized it, the engine of the RV came to a stop, but only halted for a few moments as Cliff climbed out from the driver's seat and Mom took over. Ma was sitting shotgun, giving Mom a quick tutorial on the controls, as it was her first time driving anything this large. Cliff groaned as he headed toward the rest of you, stretching his arms above his head and loosening up his muscles. We're making good progress. Yeah, maybe you should take a nap in the back for a while. That was a long haul you just did, and I know you're on less sleep than usual. Cliff waved a hand, that trademark grin of his slipping into place.
Nah.
I don't need sleep. I've still got a few miles in the old tank. He flexed an arm, showing off his muscles to drive the point about how resilient he was. Oh, showing off his muscles to drive the point about how resilient he was home, and Kyra rolled her eyes in amusement. Dad, everybody has to sleep. Cove shook his head at the tough guy act, though Cliff simply chuckled and ruffled his son's hair.
So?
Are you going to be driving again anytime soon, Mr. Holden? I want to know so I can prepare. Did anyone pack some rope? I might need it. There's no seatbelts up here. Elizabeth called down from where she was lounging in the loft above the driving compartment. She was laying on her back, her hair falling over the side and swinging around as the RV started up again and took off down the road. A bag of potato chips was balanced on Elizabeth's stomach, and she tossed a couple in her mouth right as Cliff held a hand to his chest, pretending to be offended by the remark. Kyra laughed lightheartedly.
Don't worry about that.
Lucky for all of us, we have enough adults to cover the shifts today. He won't be driving again until tomorrow. You stayed quiet. You shook your head at the ribbing. Phew, that's a relief. Just enough time to write up my last will and testament. You shouldn't gang up on the poor guy. It's not his driving I'm worried about. I mean, if this is our mom's first time driving an RV, let's not forget how many times Mom has put a dent in our car. It was only twice. Neither of those times was my fault, thank you very much. Mom then shouted back in her seat to join in the conversation, a playful smile tilting her lips. What I'm more worried about is this old monster getting us there and back again before falling apart. It looks as though it was built in the early 90s. Must be older than some of the occupants. That's just the aesthetic of the decor. It's not that old, I think. Did you ask what year the model was before you rented it? Kyra wrinkled her nose in thought.
Hey!
Yes, I did. I just can't remember what the answer was. Cliff chuckled at her, while the rest of you let out a collective sigh. The RV lurched a little as it picked up speed, and you held on to the ladder to the loft to keep your balance. You felt something graze the top of your head before a weight settled on your purple hair. When you tilted your chin up carefully to look, you heard the rustling of the bag of chips and realized that Elizabeth had rested the end of it on your head. She gestured to the opening, silently offering to share her snack. Oh, thank you. Took a handful. Reaching up, you scooped up some chips. After that, the weight of the packet left your scalp. You happily munched away as the conversation continued on, and you got closer and closer to your destination. The day flew by, the group of you chatting, playing games, and passing the time together before finally arriving at the park and setting up for the night. Ma was closing the windows while everyone got ready for bed, saying goodnight to the others as she made her way to the back room. You had all had dinner together while still driving, and some hours after had arrived at your destination and found a spot to park in for the rest of your stay. Giving a look across the front of the RV, you noticed almost everyone there was already dozing off where they were, with Cove having completely fallen asleep curled up in the passenger seat. He must have done so while Kyra was driving the last leg. and they had decided not to disturb him. Kyra herself was the only one up there who was still awake, flipping through a magazine next to a portable light from her spot on the couch. It seemed Mr. Holden needed to sleep despite his claims. You followed your moms into the back room and closed the door behind you before crawling out onto the bed between them. It was a queen-size bed, so there was enough space for the three of you together without too much squishing.
Good night.
Get a good rest, Jamie. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow.
That's fantastic.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to the bushwalk in the morning. It's been a long time since I was out in nature like this. There will be plenty for us to see. You stayed awake for a little while longer while your moms whispered about the park and forests in general. With the sound of their voices in the background, eventually you nodded off to sleep. The next morning, you were up bright and early, preparing for the day ahead. You had slept well. You had an okay sleep. You had slept terribly. I would imagine not that great, but definitely wouldn't have slept well, that's for sure. Okay. It's nothing compared to your bed at home, but at least you didn't have to sleep on the floor, so you couldn't complain too much. Ma whined a bit about the firmness of the mattress, but Mom had only encouraged her to enjoy the trip while she could. While looking for a spot to get ready, you had some trouble finding a space of your own as the others were doing the same thing. Cove was perched on top of the counter, brushing his hair and tucking up his legs every time someone wanted to move past. The parents were checking, double-checking, and triple-checking that you had everything, to the point where you had stopped listening to them altogether. You knew you wouldn't be returning to the RV at all that day, but by the look of the backpacks that were packed up and ready to go, you doubted anything was missing from them. It didn't take much longer until you all exited the RV in a bustle and headed into Redwood National Park. Wow. Cove had his head tilted up toward the canopy of trees, his eyes wide as he took in the massive trunks on either side of you. You knew that the redwood trees here were considered the tallest trees on Earth, but you weren't prepared for exactly how huge they would be in person.
Come on.
Smile, you two! You spun just in time for Kyra to snap a picture of you and Cove together, before she pointed her camera at Cliff, trying to get a shot despite his weak protests that she should just enjoy the moment. Your parents were walking behind the group a little, with Mom telling Ma some information she had read about the park in a brochure. Ma listened happily while looking around and taking in the sights, every now and then asking a question or making a joke about something Mom had said. You smiled at them, thinking your mom must have read a lot of pamphlets to know so much about the park. Maybe you should come and work here as a tour guide if you know so much about the place. Elizabeth teased, earning a squeeze on the nose from your mom. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but you thought that might just be because she was amused by everyone else's reactions. Oops. You were in awe of the redwood trees. Oh, dang it! Sorry, I accidentally right-clicked. You were fascinated by the sensations surrounding you. You were in a good mood. You weren't as impressed as the others. You were embarrassed that the adults were being so touristy. You were looking for Ewoks. No, you were in awe of the redwood trees. Surrounding you on either side, the enormous trees shot up into the sky, the sunlight peeking through the canopy and speckling the path in front of you. The sheer size of the redwoods made you feel like a tiny ant bustling along through the forest. The adults had decided on some casual nature walks rather than any serious hiking, and you strolled along at your own pace, taking in the scenery. I've actually been, I can't remember if it was Redwood National Park, but I have been to see redwood trees. I think it was Muir Woods up near San Francisco. Elizabeth sped up a little, smirking at Cove as she fell into place between the two of you. Immediately, you could tell by her expression that she was gonna say something taunting. I can't believe our families are actually on vacation together. She threw her arms out, speaking with a genuine sense of bewilderment. I would have joked about something like this happening, but now I'm not sure I want to give them any more ideas. Cove smiled at her, even if it was a little awkwardly, and continued walking along. Just watch. Next year, they'll be talking about their next new amazing idea. She put on a fake voice deeper than her own. We should just sell both our houses and move in together. Think of how much we'd save on the mortgage. It was clear that Elizabeth was being sarcastic. Cove simply shook his head, not really bothered by her. He supposed he was used to it by this point. But seriously, you really do act like we're a single family, just because we live across the street from each other. Elizabeth gave you and Cove a look, her eyes glinting with mischief as she leered at you.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we will be related, legally anyway. She said it as though she was a gossipy old lady. Maybe. I guess you and me could get married, Elizabeth.
What?
What? Me? Yeah, that way Jamie would be my sibling-in-law. That would be fun. Elizabeth stuck her tongue out at Cove as if the very idea were ridiculous. You told her to cut it out already. Cove has a point. It wasn't a great comment. I'll marry you, Cove. You ignored Elizabeth. You were embarrassed. I'm gonna be embarrassed. Why did she always have to say things like that? It wasn't fun, and she knew it. After no further replies, your sister walked ahead. You and Cove swapped uncomfortable looks. The day continued on with plenty to see and experience. Oh no, he sees us as a sibling and not as a friend or a potential love interest one day. You passed a few different activities that you would have liked to try out if you had the time, such as kayaking and rock climbing, but Ma said that would have to wait for another trip. There was a little stream during the walk that you sat beside and set out a picnic for lunch, nibbling on a selection of fruit, sandwiches, and chips. Various birds flew by overhead, and you made a game out of guessing the species that were hanging out in the trees nearby. You even managed to get a couple of them right, including the kingfisher that grabbed half of Cliff's sandwich. You were glad you got to do this in the end. You were disappointed to only have one day in the park. You thought the long trip wasn't worth only one day here. You had more fun hanging out in the RV. You hadn't had a good time with this trip. Disappointed to only have one day in the park. There was so much here, and you felt like you'd need a whole week, maybe even more, to experience it all. You sighed quietly to yourself, wondering if you'd get the chance to come back. Your group made it back to camp just as the sun was setting in the sky, and the stars were appearing one by one. Everyone had enjoyed different parts of it most. You traded stories of what you thought while you were eating dinner. Then, afterwards, you pitched in to help clean up. You, along with Elizabeth and Cove, got to head back to the RV early and spend some time together while the parents stayed outside longer. It was nice to have the space to yourselves after the cramped journey there. And while Elizabeth had locked herself in the back room with her headphones, you and Cove were left in the main lounge area. You headed up to the loft to relax on your own. You hung out with Cove. Well, let's take a load off. We've got some time. You took a seat on the sofa while Cove sat down on the other end, tapping his fingers against his knees. You know, I hardly ever see you wearing a jacket, especially in summer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like wearing as few layers as possible. It's easier that way. I'd rather be cold than extra hot. And it's kind of a pain to carry extra clothes around. My parents made me bring this jacket. And the same way. I don't mind either way. I love wearing layers. I love layers and accessories too. What was I, 13? I would have loved a lack of layers, but also accessories. They're bulky and heavy, and they usually make me feel too warm. Well, I almost never feel too warm, but bulky, yes. Also, like, everything fits with the sleeves over my knuckles. Cove smiled lightly at you and nodded. I've noticed. You changed the subject. You asked him what he'd like to see others wear. What? Let's talk about something different. That conversation had run its course. Instead, you asked Cove about what else he would have liked to do in the park if he had more time here. The two of you ended up chatting about various outdoor activities available. Kayaking, rock climbing, hiking, horseback riding, wildlife walks. There were so many things to potentially choose from. You made an agreement that if one of you ever had the chance to come back, you'd bring the other two. That way you could try it all together again. Parents all arrived soon after, each of them climbing into the RV and finding some place to sit down and rest their legs. Elizabeth, having heard the commotion, came out from the room for the first time since arriving and joined you all. You spent the evening chatting and playing a few games, enjoying the last evening of the trip together. Bedtime arrived within the blink of an eye. As the group hunkered down for the night, your mom did a final round to be sure nothing had been left behind. She explained that Cliff was going to start driving early in the morning, like on the first day, but would be letting everyone else in the group sleep. There wouldn't be a need for all of them to get up. Now was the time to check you hadn't left anything outside. You, as well as everyone else, were confident you had it all packed up inside the RV, which meant it was time to get some rest before the journey home tomorrow. Your moms and Elizabeth said goodnight, heading to the back room while you climbed up to the loft. Cove and his family got situated below in the previously set arrangement. You tried to get comfortable as a million thoughts were running through your mind. It was hard to believe that the trip was practically over, and before you knew it, you'd be back in your own bed at home. You enjoyed this mini adventure. You thought the trip had been okay. You felt the trip was a waste of time. You hadn't had a good time. Enjoy the mini adventure. It was short, that's for sure, but you got to see and do so much during your time here. Did we? So much? All in all, it was a nice break away from home. The minutes ticked by silently. It didn't take long for the soft snores of Cliff and Kyra to drift up to you. They were asleep now. You wondered if Cove was still awake and decided to poke your head out from the loft to find out. You blinked through the dark. Looking down the hall, you noticed Cove laying on his back, his eyes staring straight up at the ceiling. His seafoam hair was spread out on his sleeping bag. He must have felt you watching him, because suddenly his eyes locked on yours. It was difficult to see much in the dim light, but you could make out the crooked smile on his face well enough. You grinned back at him. You made a silly face. You waved at him. Cove shrugged in his bed while still smiling, or at least, you thought he did. You then gestured for him to come over. You then went back to trying to sleep. You then decided to have fun quietly. Let's call him over and see what happens. Cove looked unsure about it, but you were happy to see him slowly start to sit up anyway. His sleeping bag rustled as he moved, though he tried to go slow, and froze up like a deer in headlights every time he made a sound, watching his parents for any sign of movement. Eventually, he managed to maneuver around his sleeping dad and made it to the ladder, standing on the bottom rung where he looked up at you and whispered. What? Hi. Oh, it was nothing. Good night. How you doing? You invited him up to the loft. I guess we'll ask him how he's doing with this trip with his parents and everything. Cove shook his head in disbelief, but you could see the hint of a smile peeking out. Good night, Jamie. He turned right around and crept back to his spot on the floor. You laid down, shuffling onto your back and looking up at the rivets set in the roof of the RV through the dark. At some point, your eyes grew heavy, and you gently drifted off into a deep sleep. When you woke up the next morning, it was to the rumble of the RV as it traveled the long journey home. Still blinking sleepily, you peeked over the edge of the loft to get a glimpse at what was happening. Cove was sitting with his mom on the couch, the two of them talking quietly. He must have noticed you moving around up there because Cove's ocean blue eyes snapped to yours and he gave you a smile. Morning, Jamie. Good morning, Cove. Soon your moms and Elizabeth emerged from their room, dressed and ready for the day of travel. You spent most of the day hanging out together in the RV, savoring the last few hours of vacation. Kyra suggested a few different travel games she used to play with Cove when he was younger, and you all had a great time competing against each other. When the RV finally pulled onto your street, it was well into the night, and you were looking forward to crawling into your own bed after the last few days away. Everyone else must have been feeling the same because it was mutually agreed that unpacking and cleaning the RV would wait until morning. Once home again, you went straight up to your room and dropped onto your bed, shoes and all. Oh, not the shoes. You were happy to be in your own bed. It felt weird to be alone. It felt good to be alone. You wished you were still on the trip. You missed being near Cove. Alas. I'm gonna go with wished I was still on the trip. There was so much more you wanted to see and do, and being away from home had a special kind of feeling to it. It was sad that it ended. With those last few thoughts drifting through your mind, it wasn't long before you dozed off to sleep. Tomorrow, life would go on like normal. All right. Okay, so there's one more chapter, part, moment. So I'm gonna refill my water and take a bio break, and I will be right back.